Now introducing the Minor Wisdom Trio!
Minor Wisdom!
Hey guys, how's it going? So this week I've got Davina Fangman, and oh boy, two things I screwed up on with this interview. One, I normally don't have my interviewees introduce themselves because I do an interview or an introduction here, and after everything was said and done, if I'm saying it wrong, Davina, then I'm sorry, but it's pretty straightforward. But Davina Fangman, she is an elementary school teacher, theater teacher in Midland, and was happy to have her on. There aren't a lot of elementary theater teachers, so to say I want more on is tough because there just aren't that many, and people are growing these elementary theater departments. I know that when I left Fort Bend, they were working on it, and it has since doubled in size because they went from 1 to 2. Double. So, anyway, it's a thing, and Davina says it at the beginning. She's not your typical elementary school teacher, and I think that that's very true. She's just, when you think of an elementary school teacher, you might have a little bit of a stereotype on those people, but she was great to talk to, great to chat with, as you can see by the length of this podcast. Not that the length of a podcast matters, or does it? The other thing I screwed up on is I continue to trust Xfinity, and you'll hear 4 times in this interview, I took out the long pause, but we had 4 really long drops, and I did not interrupt her or tell her to start over because, to be completely honest, it was such a long drop that to say start over from what you were saying 30, 45 seconds ago would have probably been more confusing. So what I did is I took my editing machine and I edited out the long pauses. So you're going to have 4 kind of weird moments, and I tried to leave a little bit of the drop element in so that you're like, oh, that must have been an edit, because it's not a clean edit. But there are 4 pauses, and I apologize to anyone who just looks forward to the immaculate interviews that I do every week. This one just had 4 Xfinity, hey, we don't want to give you internet anymore, and screw you, Xfinity. You can go straight to HE double hockey sticks, okay? So we are looking for a new provider. If anybody's selling, we're buying. The other thing we're buying right now, and as I record this, it is Saturday, close to dinner time, and we have a guy in our house right now. We have a guy in our house, and anyway, he's creating a lot of dust, and he's giving us a new bathroom. And no, we are not wealthy. We just own a credit card and needed a new bathroom because we were tired of showering in a shower where if you just lift your knee, now not only is your knee touching a wall, but so is your booty. So we just wanted a kind of a bigger shower. Yes, first world problem, but our problem. Okay, so we have put on the credit card a new bathroom, and it looks beautiful. I can post pictures maybe at some point, but I have been better about posting pictures about my work recently. Speaking of work, we're doing Beauty and the Beast. It opens 2 weeks from this past Friday. We preview on Thursday. So it is in 2 weeks. It is, pardon the pun, but a beast of a show. And it's going to look, wait for it, beautiful. Tale as old as time. And so anyway, it's a really fun, huge, massive show. ZFX came out last weekend. I think I mentioned that in the last week's podcast. ZFX came out. We had Cameron from ZFX. And if you get Cameron, you are a lucky son of a gun. Cameron from ZFX was absolutely amazing. She is a local ZFXer, if that's how they call themselves. And she's from Houston, so she was awesome. And the nice thing was we didn't have to pay for her board. You know what I'm saying? So she just went home. Actually, she told me she was going to her aunt's because it was like her birthday weekend, so she was getting turned, But anyway, yeah. So we had Cameron. If you get Cameron, you've lucked out. You've won the lottery. You've won the ZFX We've Got to Fly People lottery. So there you go. The last thing that I'll mention is that Ava has ringworm on her leg. And I was hashtag blessed as a child never to be so disgusting. But my daughter has ringworm, and it's really gross. Really gross. If you're a parent and you haven't crossed the ringworm bridge, that should be a new shirt. Then good luck when you do. But apparently Jennifer had it when she was a kid. But Jennifer is one of those people that everything that my child or children are diagnosed with, she's like, "Oh, I had that. I had that. I had that." Anyway, so she's the worst. Am I right, guys? So anyway, enough about me. Let's get to the interview with Miss Davina Fangman. Please, and no, I'm not releasing this because it's Halloween. Her last name happens to be thematic. But please heart this podcast or star it or do something. Buy a shirt, like it, follow me on the Facebook and the Twitter. Anyway, have a great week, everybody. I can't wait to see some of you at Festival Grapevine. Moving down a great. No, that's the wrong song. Anyway, ooh, I bet you. And is that anyway? I gotta go. I'm busy. All right, go Astros.
I listened to a few of the podcasts before, and I am hearing all of these amazing theater educators. Like, I don't know how I'm thrown into the mix here, but I teach in elementary school, and I think that's what is entertaining about me because I am not the typical elementary school teacher. I think of elementary school teachers as like bright and sunshiny and super fun all the time, and that is not me at all. I say that my toughest grades are kinder and first grade. Like those are the hardest grades to teach because it's mostly about wrangling kittens at that point, and so is cutting, and it's sometimes kinder and first grade are are the most challenging classes that I teach. But I always knew, like from the very beginning, from the dawn of time, that I was going to be a teacher. I just didn't ever think that I would be a theater teacher. Um, and I definitely didn't think it was going to be in elementary. So that was kind of a shock to literally everybody in my life. I started when I was, I don't know, a fourth grader. I would take all those like all this the extra papers, extra worksheets and stuff that I would get from my teachers at the end of the year that they were just going to throw out. I would take them home and I would make my cousins come over and do worksheets with me, and they hated me for it. But I mean, we had fun too. We just also did math work. Not that I'm any good at math at all, but um I knew from then that it was like teaching was going to be the only thing that I was ever going to do. And I've thought about doing other things, you know, post 2020 when everything was super crazy and everything was really hard. I thought, okay, maybe I need to hang up my hat and do something different. But every year I say it, and every year I get a whole other group of kids, and it's like, I think I'm going to try to stick it out for them a little while longer. And here I am, just continuing and just chugging right along. Um, but I didn't start out in theater. I've always been like, I'm not gonna say a performer because I'm not a performer, but theater has always been something that I have enjoyed. But when I was in high school, I focused on I did a little speech and debate. Well, let me phrase that. I did a little speech. I didn't do a little debate because I can't debate to save my life. Um, but I did a little bit of speech, and I was, moderately successful, not like super crazy out there, but I did have a lot of fun doing it. But I focused a lot of my high school career on ROTC. So when people see me and they interact with me, they're like, okay, see, I could kind of see that because you can be kind of a drill sergeant sometimes and kind of have that personality. So it just works out nicely. And I loved being in ROTC, but I I always told myself I was never going to go to the military. Nothing against those that do, because they hold a special place in my heart, but that was just not going to be my story. So when I went to college, I thought, I think I want to teach high school history. Why high school history? I don't know. I'm not a math person. I will never be a math person. That's my husband's job. Science was never my game. I liked English, but I could do without it, I guess. But history, for whatever reason, I like the hard dates and the hard people, and this is what happened, and this is why it happened, and this is how we make it not happen again. Like, those were the things that I like to focus on. And so when I got to college, when I got to the end of my senior year in high school, and I'm trying to pick my classes and my majors and all that, I went and looked at what it would be a history major, to teach history. And I didn't want to do all those classes. I was like, okay, well, let's try the next best thing, because I like history, but do I love history? Like, do I really love history? And so I started going down the path of communications and like speech, because I was like, I really enjoyed doing speech in high school, and so maybe that's something I could do. And I did go to Angela State, and I saw that is, I if I'm not mistaken, that's your alma mater as well. And so
I
I
don't
did go to
remember what the
Angela
hand
State.
sign. Yeah,
Oh, I think it's
yeah,
like
that's what it
no,
is.
it's yeah,
I
it's
think you're
it's
right.
the
Yeah, yeah.
Rams.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Keep going. I don't want to interrupt.
Anyway, so I did go to Angela State, and I started in communications, but at Angela State, it in communications, you only get so much of the uh like performance, like what I want to do, speech and debate kind of communications, and then it kind of bleeds into radio and TV and journalism, and yeah, that's not my thing. So I thought, okay, well, I really enjoy theater. That's the part of speech that I kind of like. Like, I like using my voice. I like being out in the open. Um, let's try theater and see how that goes. And in comes Dr. Bill Dole, and I don't know if I mean I'm sure a lot of people know him, but he is like the softest, cuddliest, crankiest old man I've ever met in my life. But I love him to death, and he made theater, like, he just brought me into the fold, and he was so real with me all the time. And I said, you know what? I think this is something that I would like to do. Like, I would like to teach theater. This seems like my thing. Like, I could teach theater. I could do this. I could, be out there. I don't have to be on stage. I just, teach everybody else how to do it. And so he took me to my first TETA when I was maybe a sophomore in college. And at that point, I had changed my major like three times, from history to communications to now theater and communications. And then I was flip flopping. So I decided theater education was going to be the way that I was going to go. And it kind of just like it fit. I liked it. I liked meeting new people. I liked everything about what was TETA at the time. I loved going to the workshops and, just being around that collective group of people. It was electrifying, and everybody was so excited, and everybody was so like passionate about their craft. And so it's like, this could be good for me. I love this idea. Not quite what my dad had in mind. My mom was very, do your thing. And my dad was very, now, is this going to make you a lot of money? Are you going to make a lot of money teaching? And I was like, well, Dad, I mean, it doesn't matter the subject that I teach. I'm probably going to make the same amount of money, and it's not going to be a lot. So I guess I'll just marry into money. I didn't marry into money. Um, but I just stood my ground. I said, this is something that I want to do, and this is a stable position. Like, I'm not going to have to worry if my meal's going to come next week. I'm going to be a teacher, and everybody needs a teacher. Teachers are in short supply. And if you're good at what you do, they want you to stay. So I put it to him like that. I said, well, this is stable, and this is what I want to do. So you're just going to have to jump on board or get out of the way. And he jumped on board. He's pretty supportive for not understanding a lick of theater. Um, but I did the substituting and I did all the things, and then I moved to Midland. And the move to Midland was not paved with sparkly flowers. It was rough. It's like dirt out here in the sticks. And I couldn't find a job anywhere. My husband had moved shortly before that, and he was working for the oil field, and then he wasn't working for the oil field, and he was offered a job in Dallas. And I said, "Well, I can find a job in Dallas. That's not a problem." So I start pushing my name out there, and I got nothing. So I said, "Okay, well, I don't know what to do. I guess we moved to Dallas, and I just hope for the best." And the week we were leaving, I got a phone call to interview for a speech position, teaching communication applications is what it was called. So it wasn't like speech and debate. It was like an actual speech class where you get up and you stand up and you give a speech, and that's what it was. It was a half semester class. So I rotated every semester. And I told my husband, I was like, I haven't gotten anything else from anywhere. He said, "Well, you don't have the luxury of saying no to a job, so may as well interview for it. I mean, what's the worst they could do? They could say no." And I said, "You're right." And I had already interviewed for a few theater positions in Midland, and I had been denied. So I said, "Well, I mean, if all else fails, at least I have a teaching job." And I interviewed, and that afternoon, the principal at the time called me and he said, "I would love to offer you the position." I said, "Great, awesome. I'll just unpack everything that I've already packed to move to Dallas." So we stayed, and it started in speech, and I knew that I knew I wanted to move into theater. I didn't want to teach speech for the rest of my life because nobody likes the speech class. It was a requirement at the time, and you just got everybody. And so it was hard to get those kids to buy into it. And so my department head introduced, I say that with quotation marks because it was kind of a janky introduction, but introduced me to the theater teacher there, who is Tiffany Gardner Moore. And she will tell you the story, and she tells everybody the story. But when he introduced me, he said, "This is the theater teacher, this is Tiffany, and you should, help her and figure out how to do this theater thing since that's what you want to do." And I said, "Cool." And he introduced Tiffany. When he introduced me to Tiffany, he said, "Hey, this chick is here for your job. Just watch out, wink, wink." And then of course she didn't want to have anything to do with me because I was trying to get her job. And I didn't realize that's what happened. And so I'm, volunteering to help. And that year they did Cinderella, and it was a big undertaking. And then I volunteered for that, and I kind of stuck around. And that year she did Spring Awakening for one act play, and I helped her with that. And from then it was just like a block. I can try it. I mean, I substituted in elementary, and that was a cakewalk. And when I substituted in junior high, it literally sent me home crying. So I said, "You know what? Let's give it a try. I can do elementary school." It's been a ride. I mean, I don't get the crazy outlandish stories that everybody else gets, but man, those elementary school kids keep you on your toes, and they keep me guessing every day. They have such a personality, and they are so excited about everything. Like, they are not jaded like the high school students. They are not jaded like the junior high students. They're not too cool for school. They just love it, and they just want to do everything. And so I've been at this school now this is my 11th year, and we have grown this program so that it has been like I've seen kids from my little baby group to jumping into the junior highs and doing junior high one act play, and then going on and doing high school one act play, and doing high school prose and poetry, and being so successful. And I've had kids that have started with me. I had a kid that started with me as a fourth grader, which was my first year at that school. And he was not the kid that I would have pegged to stay in the program. And he stayed all through high school, all through junior high. He's gone on to do theater in college, and it's just like it warms my heart. I'm like, okay, so this is why I teach elementary school. I mean, I'm not the typical elementary school teacher, but I feel like me personally, my personality probably fits better in the junior high. I talk to the kids more like they're junior high kids, which, I mean, you just got to be real with them, and that's why they love me. But the way that just they just take it in, and even the kids that don't come to my program, they go off to do theater in junior high, and they love it. And then even the kids that I have kids that don't stick with theater. And I tell them, I'm like, look, you guys are going to go to junior high. Everything is going to open up. You're going to have athletics, and you're going to have more band experience, more band opportunities, and more choir opportunities. And you're going to have all these opportunities under the sun. I'm not going to be upset if you take theater. I'm going to be upset if you throw all your opportunities away. So, I mean, I have kids that come back to school because I have their younger siblings, and they tell me all about their successes, and I try to be there for all those successes when I can. And it's just one of those things. Like I say that they drive me nuts, but I love those little kids. They smell kind of funny, and they're likely to ask me to tie their wet shoelace, which I will not do because you never know why it's really wet.
The the problems you have
Yeah,
compared to
they're very different. Like the problems in elementary school are very different than the
man,
problems in junior
that
high.
that's that's a shirt.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a shirt or a sticker right there. Like
yeah.
I won't tie your shoelace or your wet shoelace because I don't know why it's wet.
I don't, and they'll look at me, they're like, Miss Fangman, can you tie my shoe? I'm like, oh, I don't know how to tie shoes. I'm so sorry. I don't tie my own shoes. See, I don't have
That's
shoelaces. I have zippers for that
oh man,
reason.
or just wear Crocs. Um,
Yeah.
that's oh man, I don't know where to go from there. But I feel like I could end there, but I'm not going to because that would be a horrible ending, but also amazing. All right, so there are probably I would imagine I don't have these numbers, but I would imagine most of the people that listen to this podcast, all two of them are high school teachers.
Mm,
Um, and so when like because I know I can empathize with the high school teacher, obviously I can sort
sure.
of empathize with junior high because my wife was in junior high for so long, and then I have two elementary age kids,
Hmm.
but I understand the wet shoelace, but the classroom
It's
element
a thing.
the classroom element I don't understand as much. But so there are high school teachers that are probably hearing you say that you have the person or you feel like you would probably be better suited for junior high and they
Mm,
still think you're crazy uh,
hmm.
because like high school teachers that want to be high school teachers that are in junior high to like start with because kind of like you said you just kind of take the job that you can get to begin with, you know how you took
Sure.
speech, that take that junior high job, they're like, I'm not a junior high teacher, I'm a high school teacher.
Mm.
Like there's a whole like you are a special person to be able to say, I'm not really elementary. I'm more junior high. Like even we're like, man, you really are a little crazy. Uh
Yeah.
so
Well, I mean, I think about those high school teachers and I'm like, I could never. I've entertained it. I've
it's
entertained going up to the high school and doing all the high school things. And then I look at my friend Tiffany, who literally spends her life up at the
yeah.
theater, and I said, nah,
Yeah.
that's not me.
And I will say now that I have a job that affords me the ability to have a little more freedom because we don't really rehearse that much after school, if ever. I don't know if I ever want to go back to that life because
Mm.
I do like my family. So most of the 6 out of the 7 days of the week, I like them.
Yeah, I'm more like 4 or 5.
Okay, that's
I like
fair.
my
That's
family.
about average. So um, I wrote down a bunch of different things. First of all, I just want to know how curiosity. How old are your kids?
So we started late, like super late. I'm in my mid 30s and my oldest is 3. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna be one of those old moms at the kindergarten class. And then the youngest one
Experienced
turned
moms.
1. Experience.
Experienced moms. Yeah,
Fun. The 30 somethings are the fun moms. I don't care what
yeah.
anybody says.
I
But I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Okay. My sister is 44 and she doesn't listen, so I don't care if I say her age. But she has a 5 and a 7, so Um, he's almost 6, but anyway, whatever. So I get it. It's fine. You're allowed to be. You're not an old mom by any means. Again, experienced. I like it. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, do your students appreciate the kind of drill sergeant? You kind of alluded to this a little bit because you
Hmm.
said you kind of tell them, you speak to them like they're older kids. But
Yeah.
do they appreciate that kind of drill sergeant, kind of regimented schedule
Um,
type person, or no?
Sometimes, like, the ones that I've had for a long time, because like my school, we don't have a lot of turnover. Once they're in, they stay because it's a magnet school and it's by chance when you get in.
It's a magnet
So I've had
elementary.
kids. Yeah, it's a magnet. It's a fine arts
I
magnet.
got you. Oh wow.
So we focus on, like, we have 7 different fine arts classes at my school. Um, the ones that I've had since they were little bitty, like kindergarten age, they tend to appreciate it a little more because they know that at some point she's going to get a little softer and she's not going to be as hard on me. The new ones, because I get new ones. I mean, we get new ones every year, not a whole lot, but we do get new ones, and they tend to be a little shell shocked when they first experience me because they don't they don't know how to read me, and so it's yes and no. Like, some of them like it, some of them don't.
So again, because I do this podcast very selfishly, so sometimes the questions are really just because I want to know. I don't really care what other people want to know. So I got to ask. I have a 6-year-old. She just turned 6 a couple
Mm,
days ago. She's in kindergarten.
mhm.
She's To give you some background. They're both my girls are September birthdays, and I've got one in 5th grade who just turned 10. So she's young in her class, and then
Sure.
I've got a 6-year-old in kindergarten who's the oldest in her class, right?
Mhm.
Well, Eleanor, love her to death. She's sleeping right outside this door, so I can't talk too much about her. Otherwise, she'll come in. But she has a little bit of an anger issue.
Mhm.
Is that normal for like? Do I need therapy?
Well, I mean, we've had our fair share of, how do I say this without
I know.
being a
Yeah, I want you
complete
to be
jerk?
careful, but
I
yeah,
mean, we've had our share of little anger issues,
yeah,
but what we've come to notice is that a lot of the times, and this is from my perspective as a parent too,
yeah.
because the younger one is, she's angry all the time, like she's a firecracker. It comes from them not being able to really express what, of being able to tell you what the issue is. It may come out
Got it.
in very elaborate and crazy ways, but they can verbalize what the problem is. For kinder and first, they're still trying to figure out how to use the right words and what to say.
Yeah,
And a lot of it is very, I, I guess juvenile is the word. They're Because they only have, so, like, their vocabulary is only so
right,
big. And so that's what I've noticed working in the elementary school, is that they just have a hard time telling you what the
right.
issue is.
Okay.
So,
We'll wait it out a couple years. Um,
mm.
that's good to know. Thank you. Thank you for your advice, Dr. Fangman. So, I also, there are a couple other little things. One, I need to come clean about Angelo State. I've never actually been to San Angelo because it was online. It was an online Masters
That's
of
okay.
Education.
It counts. It
Yeah,
counts.
I
It
mean, I bought all the
counts.
swag. I have Angelo State gear all over the place. But
I don't have any Angela
well,
State
there
gear.
you
I
go.
have one shirt.
See,
I
I'm
have
better
one
than you.
shirt.
That makes me better
Mm,
than you. So go Rams. But
yes.
I need to go out to San Angelo, and there's a good chance that a certain festival held in the summer might be there in the not too far future.
I have heard that
Yeah,
rumor,
yeah,
and I have been pushing,
yeah,
as a person who is in West
right.
Texas
And
and
that's
has to
why.
travel very far
Yeah,
for all of the conferences. I rather enjoy when it's closer west
yeah,
than when it's, further on the other side of the
yeah.
state. It's nice. And really, I mean, San Angelo, my husband and I met in San Angelo, and I have told him in the past that when we retire, when we're done with everything, we're going back. We're
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's growing, it's bigger. It's a
Yeah,
retirement community, in my opinion. It's it's like half collegiate, half retirement, because those are the two extremes. You're either really old and you live on the lake, or you're really young living in a frat house.
Didn't even know there
I
was a
didn't live in a
lake.
frat house.
Yeah, didn't even know there was a
Oh
lake
yeah,
there.
it's called, the people from San Angelo call it Lake Nasty Water. It's Lake Nasworthy. I mean, it's disgusting. The lake itself is disgusting, but if you're from San Angelo, you don't care. You've swam in it at least 5 times
Like nasty water. That's good.
in the last summer. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter.
That's
You could
great.
walk through the muck and the mush,
Yeah.
and it still doesn't care.
It's like
Doesn't matter.
it's kind of like the Dead Sea, but without like the history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So also I have to say, because I've figured this out over the past 170 plus interviews that I've done, history, collegiate history. So like, because my minor's in history, it seems to be
Hmm.
an underlying theme with our type of brains, our like theater brains, our performing brains, whatever that is. But lots of people have explored history degrees and then done exactly what you did and been like, well, screw this. This is,
It's
yeah,
too much.
way too many
It's too
classes.
much. Well, and so I had a very sad story from my collegiate history career. I had this history teacher, and he was a nice old man, but he was one of those that if you got him in the beginning of the morning or the end of the day, you're done. Like, you're not staying awake. There was no zhuzh about this man. He was a very kind man, and he was very good at what he did. But we the he died the week before our finals, like the Sunday before our finals, and we had all been studying, and I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And so they kind of just brought us all in one at a time, and they looked at our grades, and they're like, okay, well, you got this on this test, and you got this on this test. What do you think you would have made on the final? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's call it a B. Let's say I would have made a B. And they're like,
Wow.
great, B it is. And so they just wrote it off. And I said, okay, well, I'm done with history, so
Yeah.
it's fine.
That's not a good sign. Yeah.
No, but he was so nice. I
That's
felt so bad
unfortunate.
for him. I
Yeah.
felt I felt bad for his family, but he was an older man,
Right.
so he lived a good long life.
Right. Right. Yeah. My I don't want to turn into a death podcast, but both of my parents. This is not a woe is me. This was 16 years ago, but both my parents passed away while I was at UH in the same year. But they both passed away when I was working on a UH like a main stage show. Both main stage shows I worked on, one of my parents died. So like now that I'm back there as an adjunct, if they ever ask me to do a main stage show, I don't have any more parents. So like
I would say no, because you still have.
somebody,
I
yeah,
mean, you
I have a
have
sister, I have a
you have other
wife. Yeah,
family
yeah, yeah, that's
members.
true. I shouldn't be selfish. But
That's very true.
yeah, all right. Well, thanks for again more advice from Dr. Fangman. So
It's what I do. It's what I live to do, is give
this is great.
advice.
So I had a weird epiphany while you were talking about your experience, and I thought to myself, hey, I'm gonna ask her, is it weird because the payoff to being an elementary teacher to see your kids go off and be adults pretty much, is a
Mm.
much longer payoff, which is true. However, you could, and you correct me, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's almost actually better to be an elementary teacher because the payoff, you're seeing them grow, becoming like humans pretty much. I mean, you start with them at
Yeah.
what, 5 years old, which is barely
Yeah.
human. And you're seeing them turn into these young adults, teenagers.
Adults.
Yeah.
I'm watching them turn. And I I have this. Okay, so there's a junior currently
Hmm.
at our high school, Midland High School, and I had him when he was a first grader. That's when he started with me. So I mean, it's been a long time,
Hmm.
but I had him. I did I went to a workshop during Summerfest, and the teacher was showing us how to introduce Shakespeare to the kids at that age level, like kinder, first, second grade. So I had this little 6-year-old kid reciting Shakespeare in class, and he was doing it with all the gusto in his heart. And I said, oh my God, I love this kid. Like, I love this kid. I would take this kid home and just keep him and adopt him and love him and raise him to be the sweet little theatrical marvel that he is that I can see in his mind. And here he is now, like he's still in the theater, still rocking every day. I love him. He's he's one of the and I've loved watching him grow through the years because he was one that stayed in theater in junior high, and he stayed in theater through freshman year, and he's still in it now, and he's still very successful, and he's just like that's probably the most rewarding thing. I know it's one thing to be at the high school and to see them grow from freshman to senior and then see them off. It's a whole nother game when you're watching them when they can't even tie their
Yeah.
shoes. They can't even tie their shoes. And here they are going off and graduating and being successful. I cry every year. Every year we do this stupid senior walk and we bring the seniors
Yeah.
in from around the district. And I'm just like, oh my God, I watched you grow up. Look at you. You're beautiful. And
Yeah.
I love it. I'm not going to cry.
It's funny. Again, this is remember I had a question, and then I was like, "Well, you just mentioned the senior walk thing." We did that when I was at Dulles High School, and it's not a unique thing for, especially when the campuses are so close, right?
Hmm.
But we would do that, and the seniors turned into absolute mush when we would walk through the elementary schools and see a teacher that they just
Was still
assume had
there.
left. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
why would that teacher still be there 10, 15 years
Mhm.
later, or whatever it might be? It's not 15, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just like they don't think, oh, we keep this is our career, you know?
Yeah. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, but
I've had a few kids. They're like, Miss Pigment, look, there's nobody at the junior high right now. Do you think maybe you could go with us next year? And I'm like, look, no,
yeah,
that's a no.
yeah,
I'm comfortable. I'm gonna stay right here where it's cushy and I still have control over you
yeah.
guys. Once we get to the junior high, I lose control and it's just not gonna work.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. One is kind of a tech related question.
Okay.
Most of us in any theater profession, whether it's education or just as a designer, technician, or whatever, we cut corners, right?
Mm.
That we want so many things to be applied to a show. Some of them are, and then we start listing them. Like here's a dream thing, here's something we have to have because the script says it. Whatever. As an elementary school teacher, I'm assuming you have to cut corners and probably
Oh,
more. Yeah,
I
there.
have to cut quarters
This
every
is a
day.
multi-sided piece of paper that has multiple corners on it that you're just sitting there with a very beautiful purple set of scissors, probably those cool jaggedy edges on it. But anyway,
Mm.
what are some things that you just do not like? You insist I must have this element in my show, or is it just show to show?
Well, it kind of depends on the show, but the one thing that we try, I do most of my big shows with my choir teacher. She's like my right hand. And the one thing that we try not to skimp on, we try to do as best we can, is costuming. Like I'm, we like to build costumes, and that sounds. I mean, it's really hard to build costumes for little bodies, um, especially if we're taking something from like because you go to all these workshops and it's like redo this Goodwill outfit into something period. And that's great and all, but when you have a kid who weighs like 60 pounds soaking wet, you can't do a whole lot with a double XL blazer. But so we try to do as many of the costumes as we can and we try to repurpose. Um, Sometimes we have to build from scratch, and I kind of like building costumes. That's my favorite thing to do. Set wise, oh man, I did the butcher paper. I did the butcher paper one time, and I'm gonna tell you. So my fine arts director came and watched it, and she told me afterwards to never put butcher paper on the stage again. Don't do it. You got to do something different. You can't put butcher paper on the stage because it just looks like butcher paper. Like it just looks like paper. You got to do something different. And I'm like, okay, yes, ma'am. I'll do that next. And so we try as best we can to use what we've got. And of course, the next year I made these huge trees for Jungle Book that I had no idea how they were going to stand. I'm surprised they didn't fall on a student and crush them to death because they were so heavy. They looked great, but I mean, Set's not my thing. Costumes are my thing. I like to make costumes. I like to think about things in a different way and how we can take this piece that's already created and roundabout. It's costuming. I love costuming.
Have
That's the one thing I try not to skimp on.
Do you know Mandy Connor?
I Do I know her? Like, are
Well,
we
do you
best
know of
friends?
her?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I know of Mandy Connor. I went to her workshop
Okay.
during our Theater Fest session. That's one of the two that I got to go to because I was doing Play Fest and I was volunteering and I was doing registration. So I only got to go to a couple workshops. And she was one
Yeah.
that I made sure to go in and I sat on the floor because, I mean, who doesn't go to a Mandy Connor workshop? Because that's just
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I'm sitting here looking at her stuff and I'm like, no way that this is trash.
Right.
There's no way that this is trash. You're pulling my leg. And so I get on Facebook and I'm like, hey, Bowie parents, I need wire hangers and I need plastic bags and I need old prom dresses. And I just put a list of things. And now I have all these plastic bags and prom dresses and I don't know what to do with them. I'm like, okay, well, I got the first step. What do I do
Yeah.
now? So what I really need is for Mandy Connor to just come and live inside my
Right.
brain and tell me how to make the things that she makes,
Well,
which I don't think is.
yeah, I mean Mandy is very much like a Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, whatever,
Oh yeah.
where they make it look so effortless and then they come up to you and they're like, all you gotta do is throw the ball. Like and you're like,
Yeah.
but that's not
But how do you throw the
yeah.
ball? Because I've tried throwing the ball, and the ball is literally flat,
Yeah.
and it lands like 2 feet from where I threw it. That's what happens
Yeah.
when I try to be Mandy Connor.
She's bewitched.
He
But yeah,
is.
yeah, totally. So okay, so I want to get you out of here. You might be a night person. I am not. I am very much a morning person, which is drives my wife crazy, but whatever. Um, but I, again, not a lot of elementary school teachers listen to this. I have to say personally, and then I want you to share something like this. So my personal story started in elementary school as well.
Mhm.
With my choir teachers, is who I remember being my theater teacher, Russ Clark, who I ended up teaching with 25 years later. So
Sure.
kind of fun, right? But I remember him being a huge part of my time at Kennedy Elementary, go Cougars, and we did a show my fifth grade year that I did lights for, but the lights were 8 light switches on the wall that I just sat there
Mhm.
and just there was no rhyme or reason. I just
Yeah, you just get used to doing it.
flashed them with the music, whatever they wanted, right? And but that's what got me kind of in the world of theater and performance, and I wouldn't say lighting design. That wasn't necessarily the case, but it was definitely theater and performance. So, have you ever had a student come back to you years later, and if you've had multiple, try to think of one or two that gave you credit for lighting, whether it's theater or not, just
Mhm.
inspiring them to do whatever it is they are now doing that makes them happy. Have you had a student come back and kind of say, do they call you Miss F or Miss Fangman? Like what do
No,
they
they call me Mrs. Spangman.
Miss?
I have a student that to this day he refuses to call me by my my married
Yeah.
name. He said, "No, I knew you as Miss Baez, so I'm gonna keep calling you Miss Baez." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever. You can call me Miss Baez. I don't
Yeah.
care." But no, they call me Mrs. Spangman.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, yes, I have had students, kind of tell me, well, so I had that same student. I keep talking about this one
That's
particular
fine.
student.
Do it.
And when Tiffany Gardner Moore hears this podcast, because I'm gonna make her listen to it. When she hears it, she's gonna say, "Oh my God, is she gonna keep talking about him?" And I'm gonna say, "Yes, I am." So this particular student, and he's a junior now, and he told me, he said, Mrs. Fangman, I went to one of their rehearsals, one of the high school rehearsals, and he said, Mrs. Fangman, I gotta tell you, um, I think I want to be a theater teacher. And I was like, really? Like, I mean, you're good at theater, don't get me wrong, but a teacher? You want to be a theater teacher? He goes, yeah, I think so. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm glad you want to be a theater teacher. I'm glad that, that's something that you want to do. He goes, but here's the thing. I want to student teach with you. With me, why? He goes, because you love it. And because you loved it, I loved it. And now I'm here. And I said, oh, okay, well, give me a second. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna dab my face a little bit because that just choked me up. And I can't take sweet comments like that because I'm a Grinch with my heart 2 sizes too small. And I can't let my heart grow because you're telling me nice things. So he's one that, and I've had kids that don't stay in the program. And like we do, like for some reason they did a teacher appreciation thing a couple years ago. And I guess they tasked the students with emailing a teacher that meant a lot to them. And I get a random email from a student, just randomly, and it was a bad day. I remember. I don't remember what happened, but I remember it being a bad day. And I open my email and I have this email from a student who I knew she didn't stay in theater. I knew that that was not going to be something that she was going to do, but she enjoyed my class and she enjoyed having me around. And so she emailed me and she sent me the nicest email about how I inspired her so much and how, she didn't stay in the program, but she thinks about how how passionate I was and how she just wanted to be able to like reach out to people the way that I was. And I was like, "Hmm, okay, well, that's enough tears for the day." I just like I mean, I don't get it very often, but when I do, it's super nice. Like I can count like on the one hand the number of times that our students like, "Oh, Mrs. Fangman, I freaking love you. You're the best." They say that a lot, but um not when it comes to like, "You inspired me to do this." There's only been a few, which is strange because they love me. Like, I mean, I could go out and rob a bank and they'd be like, "Okay, Miss Figman, are you ready? You need some help? You need me to come in and help you? Because I can help you." No, I'm good. I can do
Yeah.
this myself.
Now, do you think that you haven't been teaching long enough? That's why? Yeah,
Maybe.
I think so.
I think my first group of kids that I had at Bowie, which would have been sixth graders. If I'm thinking right, I think they are early 20s,
Yeah.
it's like 21, 22, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Maybe they're older than that. No,
No, that's
21, 22,
you said you've been
somewhere around
teaching
there.
11 years?
11 years.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
there you
So they
go.
would have been, 21, 22,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. So I don't think I've been around that long, long enough to be able to have made that kind of an impact.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe by the time I'm old and decrepit and ready to throw in my hat, one of the kids from like 2020 is gonna be like, "Miss Bangman, I loved your lip
You,
sync video
you know
and
what?
the lessons you made me do online."
I lied to you. I don't want to get you out of here on that one because you just said 2020 and it triggered me a little bit. And so
Okay.
how how was I mean, COVID was dreadful for you, I'm assuming. Or like what did you do to kind of make that work? And again, I witnessed my now 6-year-old was not really, I mean, she wasn't online doing anything,
Sure.
but my fifth grader, she was second and third grade when all this was
Mm.
happening. And so I got to see that, and she's super smart. She takes after none of us in her family. But uh, how was that for you teaching theater to elementary
To
school kids?
elementary.
Yeah,
Well, it didn't go great, I'll be honest. I the way we were set up, like we had to meet with our older kids, with
yeah,
our fourth, fifth, and sixth graders that chose us for our electives. We had to meet with them like once a week. And then the little kids, we didn't ever really meet with them. Like
yeah,
I would send them lessons, video lessons, because I would get on and then there wouldn't be anybody there.
yeah,
And so I'm just, sitting there chilling in my, I say office loosely because it's
yeah,
not really an office, it's junk room. But I would sit there and wait for them and nobody would show up because why would you want to?
yeah,
You're at home, you just sleep in bed. But I came up with some interesting online activities for them to do to kind of help, but it wasn't anything like let's perform. And so like teaching theater online. So those people that embraced it, kudos to them because I have embraced online teaching since then, not so much like leading a class, but, like, when I go out and I have a sub, I'll video my lesson,
Mhm.
and I'll put it out there for them to watch and then give them the assignment to do, because that way the sub has no questions on, like, when we all came back to school and we were still real strict on live performances, we recorded everything, and I was pregnant that year with the little tyrant that runs around my house, and I was recording their spring performances, and I was trying to put them all together to put out there for everybody to see, and then I went down and had the baby, and then I was trying to work on it at home, and I realized you couldn't hear any of them.
Mm.
Like, I recorded everything in class, you couldn't hear a single kid in the room, and I'm like, "Okay, well, this is a waste of my time, so I'm just gonna wash this," and the kids are like, "Miss Fangman, are we ever gonna see those videos?" I'm like, "Nope, you're not, because you can't hear yourself, you're
Yeah.
just gonna be staring at movement on the screen, and it's not gonna be any good." And so, I'm very grateful that we're back, like, back, where I can have a performance and I can have an audience and not have to focus everything on online teaching, because I don't like seeing the kids in a tiny little screen. It's just not it was not fun for me.
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't fun for anybody, but
So I'm gonna get you out of here. Promise on this one last thing. This seems to be the question of the month for me. Uh, but what is because I've been branching out and trying to get out of the high school teacher world as far as these interviews are concerned, which hence
mhm,
why you're here. Um, and so what is there something you would love? Again, I've said it 5 times now that mostly high school teachers listen to this, but what is something you would love for high school educators or even college educators to know about elementary education, especially theater education, that lets them know that uh, it's okay, that this exists, and that it is something that we need and something that we should uh, be putting some more resources to, so that it can
mhm.
it can grow and become just as big as junior and high school theater education.
Sure. Well, so, uh, for 6 years, I was elementary interest chair for the, I guess, TXETA is the name now. And when I started, there were 4 elementary school teachers in the session that I was in. That was it, 4. And I didn't even know that elementary theater was a thing. Like, I am by myself here in Midland, like, there's no other elementary school theater teachers in Midland or Odessa, as far as I know. Um, I could be wrong about that, but, uh, at the last Theater Fest 2 weeks ago, a week ago, um, there were, like, 30 people in that room during my elementary energizer workshop, and they were loving every minute of it, and they were sharing stories, and they were sharing lessons, and my the thing that I told them at the end of the session, I looked at them and I said, "Look, you guys are growing. Elementary school theater is growing, and the thing of it is that if the high school people and the junior high people wanna keep their programs successful and ever growing, you've got to nurture those elementary school kids, because that is the stepping stone. Like, you can have theater without the elementary school. It ev the majority of the districts in the state do that. They just wash their hands of fine arts in elementary school. It's like baby music or baby art when the teacher gets to be in the classroom, because a lot of the time we don't get to be in the classroom because we have to go and substitute because we have a shortage of teachers. So when you have that opportunity to advocate for those elementary schools and the elementary programs, even if it's not theater, even if it's just fine arts like choir and art and, the basics, you need to make your voice heard, because uh, they grow that love when they are little bitty. It's a lot harder to reach those kids in junior high when they are so closed off from everything else, because they're only into their friends and social media and video games. That's what they're into. And if you want to really grow your programs and you want that good, solid foundation, you have got to start at the elementaries when they are ready and willing and little baby sponges, because even if they like even if it's just a little bit of theater, like fourth, fifth, and sixth, um, third grade, my third graders eat theater up. They love it. And if you can start it off at the very beginning when they're just learning how to tie their shoes and how to be in class, then you can reach them so much easier, and they are so much more willing to buy into everything that you're selling. Like, honestly, if you can get, and even if you go out into the high school programs and you do a children's show, like doing children's plays and touring them to your elementary schools, they could look like janky nonsense. And the elementary school kids are going to be like, "Oh my god, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. That was amazing." My two high school feeders, or my two high schools here, they have both done shows where they use children. Like, they bring in the elementary school kids and they hold little auditions, or they call me and they say, "Hey, I need some kids." One of the high schools here is doing How to Be a Pirate, and she called me. She said, "Hey, I need an elementary school kid to be the lead in this play. Can you shoot me some kids to audition?" I said, "Absolutely, I can find you some kids to audition, no problems. You reach out to all the other elementary school kids. There's lots of kids here." And so if you can reach out to those kids, like, do a children's show, do a show that needs kids. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was the first time that I took my kids and worked with the high school kids, and they loved it. They stuck with it, and then they remembered those kids later on. They're like, "Oh, I did that play with you when I was in 6th grade." And they're like, "Oh, I remember you. You were the little kid with the green wig." They're all little kids with green wigs. But if you can build it from there, they are so, so much more willing to help you, to be with you, to stick with you. And this is what I told my elementary school people. I said, "You know what? It's not really good theater unless you start it when they're little, like little, and then you grow it, and then it gets better and better and better and better. And then you have this plethora of talent and plethora of skill and plethora of love that it just makes things so much better." And I mean, I believe that wholeheartedly. You got to start when they're babies. If you start them when they're babies, then they're gonna love you forever.